What happens when they humiliated the quiet farmer? A week later, every Apache scout watched their homes. Witness this unbelievable true-inspired story right here on Whisper of the Past. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Let's get started. The sun blazed mercilessly over the Arizona Territory in the summer of 1883. Dust devils danced across the parched earth, and the heat shimmered like waves on an invisible ocean. In this unforgiving landscape, there lived a man named Samuel Brennan, a quiet farmer who had carved out a modest existence on 40 acres of stubborn land near the foothills of the Sierra Madre. Samuel wasn't much to look at. He was lean, weathered by the sun, with calloused hands that spoke of endless hours behind a plow. His eyes, though, those pale blue eyes, held something deeper, a stillness, a patience, the kind that comes from watching seeds grow and seasons turn. He kept to himself, spoke little, and bothered no one. The townspeople of Copper Ridge didn't know much about Samuel's past. He'd arrived 5 years earlier with nothing but a wagon, some tools, and a determination that bordered on stubbornness. While others sought their fortunes in the silver mines or cattle ranching, Samuel chose the harder path, coaxing life from reluctant soil, building fences, and living simply. But Samuel had a secret. Before he was a farmer, before the quiet life, he had been something else entirely, something the townsfolk would never have guessed. The trouble began on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. Samuel had driven his wagon into town to sell what little produce his land had yielded: squash, beans, and a few sacks of corn. It wasn't much, but it was honest work. And honest work mattered to Samuel. That's when he encountered them, the Dalton brothers and their gang. 6 men who had terrorized Copper Ridge for months, taking what they wanted, when they wanted, led by Cole Dalton, a man whose cruelty was matched only by his arrogance. They had the town under their thumb. The sheriff was either too scared or too corrupt to stop them. Cole spotted Samuel's wagon and saw easy prey. He swaggered over with his men, their boots kicking up dust, their laughter sharp and mocking. Well, Cole drawled, circling the wagon like a vulture. What do we have here? A dirt farmer trying to make $1. His men laughed on cue, their hands resting casually on their gun belts. Samuel said nothing. He simply stood there, his hands loose at his sides, his expression neutral. "I'm talking to you, farmer," Cole said, his voice hardening. "You've got a problem with your ears?" "No problem," Samuel replied quietly. "We're just selling my crops." Cole picked up a squash, examined it with exaggerated disgust, then smashed it against the wagon wheel. "It looks like pig feed to me." His men erupted in laughter. What happened next would haunt the Dalton gang forever. They didn't just destroy Samuel's produce, they humiliated him. They dumped his sacks of corn into the dirt, trampled his beans into the ground, and when Samuel tried to salvage what he could, they shoved him down. Cole stood over him, grinning. "Stay down where you belong, farmer." In the dirt with the rest of the worms, the townspeople watched from doorways and windows. Not one stepped forward. Fear had made them all cowards. Samuel got up slowly, dust clinging to his clothes. He looked at Cole, then at each of the 6 men. He said nothing. He simply gathered what little remained of his goods and drove his wagon out of town. Cole Dalton thought that was the end of it. He was wrong. That night, Samuel sat in his small cabin, cleaning a rifle that hadn't been touched in 5 years. His hands moved with practiced precision, muscle memory taking over. As he worked, memories flooded back, memories he'd tried to bury, memories of another life, when he'd been known by a different name. Before Samuel Brennan became a farmer, he had been Sam Brennan, one of the most effective Army scouts in the Apache campaigns. He'd spent 7 years in the territories, learning the land, learning the Apache ways, earning their respect through skill and fair dealing. He'd tracked outlaws across impossible terrain, survived ambushes that killed lesser men, and earned a reputation among both soldiers and Apache as a man you didn't cross. But the killing had worn on him. The violence had hollowed him out. So he'd walked away, changed his name slightly, bought his land, and chose peace. He'd hoped the quiet life would heal him. He'd hoped he could forget. The Dalton gang had just reminded him of everything he'd tried to leave behind. Over the next 3 days, Samuel made preparations. He visited old contacts, sent messages through channels that still remembered him. He called in favors from people who owed him their lives. And most importantly, he reached out to the Apache. There was a band led by a chief named Nantej who Samuel had once helped during a harsh winter, providing food when soldiers would have let them starve. Nantej never forgot debts. When Samuel's message reached him, the old chief listened, and when he heard what Samuel proposed, he smiled. "The quiet man remembers how to speak," Nantej said. "We will help him." On the 7th day after the humiliation, Cole Dalton and his gang returned to their hideout in the hills outside Copper Ridge. It was a good spot, hidden in a canyon with only one entrance. They felt untouchable there. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Cole noticed something odd. Figures on the ridge, dozens of them, silent, unmoving, watching. Apache scouts. Everywhere. Cole felt ice in his veins. His men scrambled for their weapons, but the Apaches made no move. They simply watched. A message without words. You are surrounded. You have nowhere to run. Then, from the canyon entrance, a single figure appeared. Samuel Brennan walked forward, alone, unarmed, except for the knowledge that he had the high ground in every sense that mattered. Cole Dalton. Samuel's voice carried across the canyon, calm and clear. You humiliated me. You destroyed my property. You called me a worm. Cole raised his pistol, hands shaking. Stay back, farmer. I'll shoot. No, you won't, Samuel said, still walking forward, because the moment you do, you and your men don't leave this canyon alive. Those scouts up there, they're watching your homes in town right now, watching your families, watching everyone you've ever threatened. It was a bluff, but Cole didn't know that. The Apache were only there as a show of force, a favor to Samuel, but the psychology was devastating. What do you want? Cole's voice cracked. I want you to leave tonight. Take your men and ride out of Arizona. Never come back. If I ever hear you've hurt another person, if I ever hear your name again, those scouts will find you. And I promise you, Cole, they won't be as merciful as I'm being right now. The standoff lasted 5 long minutes. Finally, Cole lowered his gun. He was a bully, not a warrior. When faced with real consequences, his courage evaporated like morning dew. By dawn, the Dalton gang was gone. Samuel returned to his farm. The Apache scouts melted back into the hills. Nantage sent word. The debt is paid, old friend. May you find your peace again. The town of Copper Ridge never knew the full story. They knew the Daltons vanished overnight. They knew it had something to do with Samuel Brennan, and they knew they'd badly misjudged the quiet farmer. Samuel went back to his plow, his seeds, and his simple life. But now, when he came to town, people nodded respectfully. They'd learned an ancient truth. Still waters run deep, and the quietest man in theorem is often the most dangerous. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in the loudest voice or the quickest draw. Sometimes it's in the patience to build a peaceful life, the wisdom to know when that peace is threatened, and the courage to remind the world why you chose peace in the first place. Samuel Brennan chose mercy. He could have chosen violence, and that choice, that restraint, made him more powerful than any outlaw could ever be. This incredible story reminds us that quiet strength often runs deeper than loud bravado, and that every person we meet carries a history we might never imagine. What do you think? Would you have shown the same mercy Samuel did? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story from history's hidden corners, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Whisper of the Past for more incredible true tales. Until next time, remember, history whispers to those who listen.